No human being has gone to the moon in more than 50 years. The last time anyone left Earth and traveled all the way to the moon was December 1972, when the Apollo 17 crew splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. Since that day, an entire generation was born, grew up, had children, and watched their own children grow up, all without a single human being going back. That is how long the gap has been. Now, in 2026, 4 astronauts are going to change that. Their names are Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. Together, they make up the crew of Artemis 2, the first crewed mission to fly around the moon since Apollo. One of them will become the first woman to travel beyond low Earth orbit. Another will be the first person of color to go that far into space. A third will be the first non-American. This is not just a space mission. It is a turning point in human history. But most people only see the launch on television and the splashdown 10 days later. What happens in between is something very few people truly understand. So let's go through it, step by step, moment by moment, exactly what these 4 people will actually feel, see, eat, breathe, and experience from the second they strap in to the second they hit the ocean. The day begins long before the rocket does. The crew has been in quarantine for several days before launch. That means no contact with the outside world, no family dinners, no handshakes with friends. Medical teams check their health every day. Their sleep schedule is managed carefully. Their food is measured down to every calorie to make sure their bodies are hydrated and ready. It sounds strict because it is. The human body needs to be in its best possible condition before being strapped to one of the most powerful rockets ever built. On launch day, the crew suits up. The suits they wear are called Orion Crew Survival System suits. They are bulky, thick, and pressurized. Think of them not as movie spacesuits but as wearable safety capsules, designed to keep a person alive if the spacecraft loses pressure during launch. The suits are not comfortable. They are not meant to be. They are meant to save lives. The 4 astronauts ride an elevator up the launch tower at Kennedy Space Center's Pad 39B in Florida, the same pad family that launched the Apollo missions to the moon decades ago. They climb into their spacecraft, which they have named Integrity. It sits at the very top of NASA's new Space Launch System rocket, which stands 322 feet tall and weighs 5.75 million pounds fully fueled. To understand how big that is, it is taller than the Statue of Liberty and heavier than a fully loaded passenger aircraft by a factor of about 8. The cabin inside Integrity is about 330 cubic feet of space. NASA compares it to the inside of 2 minivans. For 3 people in the Apollo era, that felt manageable. For 4 people on Artemis 2, it is tight. Very tight. Christina Koch has already joked that she is counting on floating in microgravity to make the space feel bigger once they leave Earth's gravity. She is going to need that. The countdown reaches 0. The RS-25 engines ignite first. Half a second later, 2 solid rocket boosters light up. In that moment, 8.8 million pounds of thrust push upward against 5.75 million pounds of vehicle. The rocket begins to move. No amount of training fully prepares you for this. A former shuttle astronaut once described launch as feeling like someone sitting on your chest, a force so heavy she could not lift her arm. The SLS is more powerful than the shuttle. As it climbs through the atmosphere, the crew feels roughly 3 times the force of gravity pressing them into their seats. Their bodies feel 3 times heavier than normal. Breathing takes effort. Moving is nearly impossible. And through all of this, the solid rocket boosters shake the entire vehicle with a deep, constant vibration that does not stop for the first 2 full minutes of flight. Then, 2 minutes in, the boosters burn out and fall away. The ride smooths out almost immediately. The main engines continue to burn for another 6 minutes, pushing the spacecraft faster and faster. Then they shut off too. The silence is sudden and complete. The pressure pressing down on the crew simply disappears. Their arms float up from their laps without them doing anything. Pencils drift out of pockets. Loose items that were resting on surfaces now hover in midair. They are in orbit. They are weightless. And for the first time, they can look out Orion's 4 windows and see the curve of the Earth below them, the thin blue line of the atmosphere glowing against the black of space. The first several hours in orbit are not spent looking out the windows, though. This is the verification phase, and it is serious business. Wiseman and the crew, together with Mission Control in Houston, go through every single system on the spacecraft. Life support. Propulsion. Navigation. Thermal control. Communications. Every system is checked one by one to confirm that integrity is healthy enough for what comes next. Because once they leave Earth's orbit and head toward the Moon, there is no space station nearby to dock with. There is no rescue ship waiting. They are completely on their own. During this phase, something else happens that no spacecraft has done before with a crew aboard. Wiseman and Glover actually fly Orion manually. They take direct control of the spacecraft and perform a series of precise maneuvers using the engines, proving that a crew can guide this vehicle through the kinds of movements that future missions will need, like docking with structures near the Moon or flying in tight formation with other spacecraft. This is not autopilot. This is hands on the controls, eyes on the instruments, real human piloting in space. Once all systems check out and the manual flying tests are done, the crew prepares for the most important engine burn of the entire mission. It is called the translunar injection. This is the burn that takes Orion from circling Earth to flying toward the Moon. The upper stage of the rocket fires one final time, accelerating the spacecraft to the speed needed to break away from Earth's gravity and coast outward on a long curving path toward the Moon, 240,000 miles away. After that burn, the upper stage separates and falls away. Orion, and the 4 people inside it, is now on its own. If something goes catastrophically wrong from this point forward, the spacecraft's path has been designed so that the Moon's gravity will swing it around and bring it back to Earth without needing another engine burn. This is called the free return trajectory. It is the same emergency path that saved the crew of Apollo 13 in 1970. It is not a comfortable backup plan. It is the only backup plan. Now begins 4 days of coasting through deep space. 4 days of watching the Earth slowly shrink in the windows behind them while the Moon grows slowly larger ahead. Every hour, home gets a little smaller. The communication delay with Houston grows slightly longer, not by much at the Moon's distance, about 1.3 seconds each way, but enough to make a conversation feel slightly off rhythm. You speak, you wait, the reply comes back a beat late. It is a small reminder, every time, that you are genuinely leaving. Daily life inside Integrity during this stretch is simple but demanding in its own quiet way. The crew has rearranged the cabin as much as possible to open up living space. The toilet is set up under the floor near the main hatch, a space of about 5 cubic feet with a curtain for privacy. There is no recycling of water on this mission since the flight is short enough to carry everything needed. All the water they will drink for 10 days was loaded aboard before launch. Food comes in pouches. A small warmer heats some of them up, but many meals are eaten at whatever temperature they happen to be. A water dispenser rehydrates the freeze-dried meals. The menu was chosen by each astronaut months before the mission during food tastings at NASA's Food Lab. The options include shrimp, macaroni and cheese, and tortillas. Jeremy Hansen, the Canadian astronaut on the crew, brought maple syrup products and salmon bites from home. There is no fridge, no oven, no table to sit at. You float in the cabin, hold your food pouch, squeeze it carefully into your mouth, and try to catch any crumbs before they drift into an air filter. That is lunch, 150,000 miles from the nearest kitchen. Sleep is carefully scheduled, 8 hours every day, with all 4 crew members sleeping at roughly the same time. They sleep in hammock-like bags attached to the walls of the cabin. There are no separate sleeping rooms. There is no door to close. The hum of the life support system never stops, fans circulating oxygen, scrubbers removing carbon dioxide, systems managing the cabin temperature. It sounds like a machine keeping you alive. Because that is exactly what it is. Exercise is mandatory. 30 minutes every day on a resistance device called a flywheel, which is installed near the side hatch. It works like a cable machine, allowing squats, rows, and other exercises. It maxes out at 400 pounds of load. The International Space Station, by comparison, has multiple exercise machines weighing over 4,000 pounds combined. On Artemis 2, you have one device the size of a carry-on bag. For 10 days, that is enough to slow the muscle and bone loss that begins almost as soon as a body enters weightlessness. For longer missions, it would not be. Cleaning up is done with wet wipes, dry shampoo, and liquid soap. There are no showers. You brush your teeth and either swallow the toothpaste or spit it into a cloth. The entire idea of personal space, of a moment alone, barely exists. 4 people in a room the size of 2 minivans, floating, for 10 days. The relationships these 4 people have built over years of training together matter enormously here. They are not just colleagues. Out here, they are each other's entire world. On the 4th day of the outbound journey, the moon stops being a distant white circle and starts becoming a real place with real features. It fills more and more of the window. Craters become visible. The texture of the surface shows through. And then, at a certain point, Orion swings around to the far side, the side of the moon that faces permanently away from Earth, the side no human has seen up close since the Apollo era. Artemis 2 will fly approximately 4,600 miles beyond the far side of the moon. At their most distant point, the 4 crew members will be over 230,000 miles from Earth. The previous record for the farthest any human being has ever been from home was set by Apollo 13, a record set not by choice but by emergency. Artemis 2 will exceed it deliberately. When they reach that far point, the Earth, containing every person who has ever lived, every ocean, every city, every family member, will be small enough to cover with an outstretched thumb. 8 billion people, covered by a finger. The far side of the moon is unlike the near side. It has a thicker crust, far more craters, and fewer of the dark, flat plains we see when we look up at the moon at night. No human being has studied it up close with modern instruments. The crew will photograph it, record data, and gather observations that will feed directly into planning future Artemis missions. They will also be monitoring radiation closely throughout this phase of the mission. Far from Earth, there is no protective magnetic shield around the spacecraft. Invisible particles from the sun and from deep space pass through the walls of Orion and through the bodies of the crew. In the event of a major solar storm, the safest place to shelter is near the toilet, where storage and structure provide the most shielding. That is the plan. It is not a dramatic one, but it is the one they have. After the lunar flyby, Orion swings around the moon using gravity like a slingshot, gaining speed, and begins the long coast back toward Earth. The trip home takes roughly 4 to 5 days. During the return, the crew continues running systems checks and documenting their experience. They are the first humans to provide real-time observations of what it is actually like to live inside Orion in deep space. No simulation, no test flight, and no unmanned mission can give engineers what these 4 people are giving them simply by being there and reporting back. As Earth grows larger in the windows over those final days, there is one more experience waiting, the one that has generated more engineering anxiety than any other part of this mission. Re-entry. When the Artemis I unmanned test flight came home in 2022, it appeared successful. The capsule splashed down safely. Internal temperatures never crossed design limits. But when engineers inspected the heat shield afterward, they found more than 100 locations where chunks of the ablative material had broken off in irregular, unpredictable pieces, not the smooth, controlled burning that was designed. For bolts embedded in the shield had partially melted through their protective barriers, leaving deep gouges. The investigation took nearly 2 years. What engineers discovered was that gases building up inside the heat shield material during re-entry had no way to escape quickly enough. Pressure built inside the material and cracked it from within. The root cause was tied to the specific trajectory used on Artemis I, where the capsule dipped into the atmosphere, bounced back out, and then re-entered a second time. That gap between the two atmospheric contacts let heat accumulate inside the shield without allowing the material to burn away properly the way it was supposed to. For Artemis II, NASA made a decision. They kept the same heat shield material. They did not redesign it. What they changed was the flight path. Orion will come home on a steeper, more direct trajectory, one continuous descent with no skip, no bounce, no pause. This reduces the time the shield spends in the temperature zone that caused the cracking the first time. The trade-off is higher forces on the crew during those final minutes. A steeper entry means a faster deceleration. The crew will feel more G-force pressing them into their seats. Here is what that actually feels like. Orion hits the top of Earth's atmosphere at roughly 40,000 km per hour, about 32 times the speed of sound. At that speed, air molecules in front of the capsule compress so violently and so fast that they create a sheath of superheated plasma reaching temperatures of around 2,760 degrees Celsius. That is roughly half the surface temperature of the Sun. A few inches of heat shield material stand between the crew and that plasma. Inside the capsule, the crew feels the forces build gradually at first, then harder, then crushing. The windows glow orange. Then white. A blanket of ionized gas surrounds the capsule and blocks all radio signals. For a few minutes, no communication is possible between Integrity and Houston. The crew is completely alone, wrapped in fire, falling toward the ocean at unimaginable speed. When the capsule slows below supersonic speed, small drogue parachutes deploy automatically. Then 3 large main parachutes billow open. Orion swings beneath them and descends toward the Pacific Ocean near San Diego. Splashdown is not gentle. The capsule hits the water hard and bobs in the swells while a U.S. Navy recovery team moves in to secure the vehicle. Divers enter the water, attach flotation collars, and the capsule is lifted aboard a ship. The hatch opens. 4 people breathe real outdoor air for the first time in 10 days. Their legs will feel weak. Balance will be off. After 10 days floating in microgravity, their inner ears no longer understand what down means. Standing upright will require real effort and concentration. Medical teams will be waiting to assist them, to check their health, to begin the process of bringing their bodies back to normal. They will have traveled more than 685,000 miles in total. They will have gone farther from Earth than any human being in over 50 years. They will have seen the far side of the moon with their own eyes, seen the whole of the Earth reduced to a small blue dot that fits behind a thumb, and they will have come home inside a spacecraft that had a cracked heat shield the last time it was used. All of that, every meal eaten from a foil pouch, every hour spent in a cabin the size of 2 minivans, every moment of floating in silence above a shrinking Earth, is what it actually means to go to the moon in 2026. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen are not going because it is easy. They are going because the door that was closed in 1972 is finally opening again. And someone has to be the first ones through it.